esteemed colleagues, magandang araw po. As Vice Chair of the Committee on Public Information, as a public servant, but more importantly, as a concerned citizen, I rise today not only in support of the proposed Right to Information Act of 2026, but in affirmation of a principle that lies at the very heart of democracy, that sovereignty resides in the people, and that government exists to serve them openly and honestly and accountably. It is an honor to sponsor this measure, especially since it was the very first bill I filed here in Congress as my commitment towards reform. For more than 3 decades, the Filipino people have waited for a comprehensive law that fully operationalizes the constitutional right to information. Since the first Freedom of Information was filed in 1992, generations of lawmakers, journalists, civil society leaders, academics, reform advocates, and ordinary citizens have carried this cause forward. This crusade was led by then Pangasinan Representative Oscar Orbos, which mandated government officials to provide access to information within 15 days after a request was made. In the 11th Congress, this great body approved the same on third reading, but was left hanging by the Senate. In the 14th Congress, in the wake of the 2008 global financial crisis, this chamber still prioritized and once again passed this measure on third reading. In the 16th Congress, my mother, Senator Grace Poe, led the Senate in unanimously passing its version on third reading, with the lower house this time stalling the passage of the measure. Many have come before us, and many have fought for this measure long before any of us entered public service. As they say, we stand today on the shoulders of giants. And so, with the inspiration of courage that I saw in my mother, I've said numerous times and in many manifestations for this bill, but I will say it once again, that she often spoke of what was known as the sunshine principle, the belief that transparency is not meant to weaken government, but to strengthen it, that public scrutiny is not a threat to democracy, but one of its greatest protections. I still remember her words when she sponsored the FOI bill many years ago. She said that when the first FOI bill was filed, I was just an infant. By the time she delivered the speech, I had already graduated from school, and yet the measure still had not become a law. Today, I rise before this great august chamber as a representative carrying forward not merely a family advocacy, but a national aspiration that has endured decades. Dear colleagues, here we are yet again at the crux of a historical moment. We have the chance to push for transparency, accountability, and empowerment of citizenry. The world has changed. Governance has changed. Technology has changed. And the challenges facing democracy today are more complex than ever. We now live in an age where information moves instantly, where misinformation spreads rapidly, and where public trust can easily erode when the institutions are perceived inaccessible or unaccountable. In such a time, transparency is no longer optional. It is essential. This bill recognizes that reality, our reality, the reality of the 20th Congress. It establishes a comprehensive framework that institutionalizes the people's right to access government-held information across all branches and instrumentalities of government. It creates clear timelines for requests, mandates proactive disclosure of public transactions, strengthens records management systems, and establishes an independent right to information commission to oversee the implementation and adjudication of disputes, giving teeth to this measure. Importantly, this measure also modernizes transparency for the digital age. It strengthens the online RTI portal, encourages open machine-readable data, and allows the responsible use of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence to improve efficiency and public access to information. At the same time, the bill carefully balances openness with legitimate concerns involving privacy, national security, due process, and sensitive personal information. Transparency and responsibility must go hand in hand. Dear colleagues, I cannot emphasize enough that this important legislation is a principled framework for accountable governance. And perhaps most importantly, this bill reminds us that the right to information must not only be reserved for the powerful, the educated, or the well-connected. It belongs to every Filipino. It belongs to the parent trying to understand how funds for schools are spent, to the farmer seeking information on agricultural assistance, to the fisherfolk monitoring environmental projects that affect their livelihood, to the entrepreneur navigating government permits, to the student learning how democracy works, and to every taxpayer who simply wants the assurance that public resources are being used properly and fairly. Transparency empowers citizenship, and an informed citizenry strengthens democracy. I also wish to recognize that this measure carries broad institutional support. The Right to Information Act has already been identified as a priority legislative measure under the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council, or LEDAC. The Senate has likewise passed its own version of the measure. Across sectors, government, civil society, media, private sector, academia, and even reform advocates who are here with us today, there is growing recognition that the time for reform has finally come. This is the closest we've ever come. And so today, we are presented with an opportunity to deepen the democratic foundations of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, to put it simply, the ball is in our court. But I must remind us all that transparency transcends politics. It is about trust. It is about accountability. It is about dignity in public service. And ultimately, it's about giving every Filipino the confidence that government truly belongs to the people. So, Madam Speaker, esteemed colleagues, after more than 30 years of waiting, let us finally transform access to information from a promise repeatedly deferred into a right fully granted by law. Let us choose openness over obscurity, accountability over silence, and public trust over public doubt.